We'll have quick lightning talks now, a couple of them before we go to the introduction of the center. The first talk would be by Dr. Chandrashekar Lakshminarayanan, who is an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Madras, and he'll talk about his work on AI for education, and this work was also won the Best Paper Award in a recent education conference. I request Chandru to give the talk.
Good morning, everyone. So I would like to now talk about some of the work that I have been doing in the space of how do you equalize learning across learners. When I say equalizing across learners, so different learners, right, have different capabilities in terms of how they can ramp up in towards various concepts, right? And this is the sort of this is what we would want to sort of equalize, so that all learners get equal opportunity. Okay. So the traditional teaching method is basically you have basically classroom teaching, and even when we are scaling to systems such as NPTEL, it's just a single lecture, and you have a fixed sequence of lessons that are being presented to the learners, right? Where we are actually taking a one size fits all approach, but then that's not something that's going to be helpful in case where we want to sort of equalize this disparity between learners, right? Different learners have different speeds of learning. So what we want to look at is AI systems in general, artificial intelligence based tutoring systems, right, where you allow the learners to learn at their own pace, right? So the same sequence of material is not presented to each and every person, and then each and every person has a different amount of exposure to each lesson, so that each learner sort of learns at their own pace, right? And then this in general is known to have a better engaging learning experience, and then there is improvement in learning gains, especially if you're just giving a fixed amount of time for a learner to practice on a particular concept, and then suppose the learner is going to struggle, then you might want to give more time for the learner to master the concept and then move forward, right? So this way you get a varied pace, so you can sort of pace faster in the areas where you are much more comfortable, and then if the learner is feeling slightly slow in mastering a concept, then the speed is also adaptive, right? And that's what we'd want to do. So and then we are in the setting of what we call as learning by doing, right, where there is an underlying domain. In this case, this is the CS curriculum, right? And then so the teachers are there, and then the students, and then the way the interaction happens is that, so the underlying the material itself is in the background, but then the teachers they assign activities, and then the students perform activities, and then the teachers kind of record the responses. So this activity could be a quiz, it could be an assignment, or it might just be you ask the students to watch a lecture and so on and so forth, right? And then you are sort of recording the responses, and this is how the feedback between the teachers and the students is set up, right? And in this setting, we are looking at when we want to replace the teacher by AI. So what you have is that you have sort of two kinds of learners. One is the artificial intelligence itself, which is kind of learning, and the humans themselves are also learning. So that's the learning system. So you have kind of two learners in a feedback loop, right? And then the personalized activity assignment happens in this setting, right? So now the critical things here are is that you have to engage the learner, and then as the learning happens, you have to detect that the learning has happened, right? Otherwise you would be just repeating the same sort of lessons. So now what we do, I'm not going to go into total details of the algorithms, but then I'll give an overall idea of what happens, right? So so in order to engage the learner, it's known from behavioral psychology that if you give them activities which are in the zone of what is known as the zone of proximal development, which is like the concepts that are not too hard, but then the concepts that are new, right? So this is where you sort of keep the learner engaged. So what you want to do is to assign them activities which are slightly difficult but not extremely difficult, right? And then what you do is you also sort of, so now I will take the technical term. So what you do is that treat them as arms in a multi-arm banded setup, right, where each choice you sort of try, and then as you give the choices, the AI sort of learns in which choice the learner is doing much better, right, which of the concept the learner is able to ramp up much faster, and then you actually ramp up the learner in that concept in which the learner feels most comfortable, right, and this way you sort of move your knowledge boundary. Right, and at the same time, what you also do is you have an algorithm which is a change point detection algorithm, which sort of detects, when the learning has happened, so that you can actually move ahead to the next concept. And then, without going into the details, so this people who are interested in the details can look at this paper, which won the Best Paper Award, and the work is joint work with my student Shabana and Jude KNL. Right, and then the algorithm itself, as I said, has two parts. One, which is the multi-arm bandits algorithm, which figures out which concept is being learned faster, and then there's a change point detection algorithm, which figures out that, okay, if a concept is mastered, then you have to move on to the next concept. So, and then we tested it out on what is known as two-operand addition. Right, and then we sort of used some simulated students, but then we also introduced some learning difficulty in certain concepts. Right, if you see the bottom red part, these are concepts where the students actually struggle, and what we see is that if you actually run this algorithm, which the curriculum tutor, which is the approach that we are proposing, it's able to sort of pace uniformly everyone, right? And then the learning gains are much better compared to a fixed, where you block a particular concept and then you give a fixed length quiz in the concept or a fixed length activity in the concept. It's much better than the curriculum tutor actually does much better than this fixed length approach. Right, so with this, I like to show the references, and in the interest of time, maybe we can have a couple of questions. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Prof. Chandru. So we can take one question and then we can move on to the next part. Any questions at this point?
No, so here the notion of fairness is everybody gets equal chance to try, right? So the way we are setting up is that, okay, so suppose I'm an interested student, I want to try, right? And you say that, oh no, you can only try for this many times, right? So that way I'm unfair. I'm still interested, I'm putting in my efforts, I'm just slow, right? So when you say that, oh, you can only learn for 2 months or 3 months, then after that it's going to go, it's the next semester or whatnot, right? It's being unfair. It's not like I'm a slacking student. It's not like I'm lazy. I'm ready to work hard. That's what I bring to the table. But then the system now allows, right, if you allow the student to work in their own pace, and that's the notion of fairness that we are trying to attack here, right? Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's thank Professor Chandru again for the talk. Yeah. So, I request Professor Ravi to hand over a memento to Professor Chandru. Last.